Bashari, 290 Eaton Avenue. I'd like to second the remarks so far about Newbury Avenue and West Broad Street. My barber and I had a conversation recently, and he said, well, this rehab facility would make use of a vacant church and provide lots of jobs. And my response was, the church can be used for something else. The rehab facility, what a very worthy concept perhaps, can go in many different places other than next to a high school. To me, it's a no-brainer. And on West Broad Street, I'd like to point out one little fact about West Broad that Mary left out. It's got the only coin dealer in the city of Bethlehem at the intersection of 3rd Avenue. And if you have any old silver coins, he's paying 20 times face value as we speak. And finally, West Broad Street has got to be one of the most difficult streets in the city to cross for a pedestrian. It's broad. It's very well named. It's very broad. And that traffic goes like a son of a gun. I don't know what the answer is, but something should be done. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to address council under public comment. Mr. Intalix.
Stephen Intalix, 77 Ridge. I had a comment to follow on Ms. Dolan's comment, but the woman about the West Broad Street. This is an aside. She mentioned being lost to the family of Bethlehem, being West Bethlehem, but there's a precedent set there, and that's the part of the family that was always left out in the rain. And when the family of Bethlehem decided to be generous and kind, invited them in for a holiday, they were then complained that that part of the family got the rugs wet. That part of the family was the old South Side. Okay, my comment, which I wished for. Some of you didn't get that. But anyway, I'll put an email to council, okay? The other is that Ms. Dolan hit on something very important. I generally, coming on the Hill Bridge back to school, would take the 412 left turn off the bridge to come up to New Street to school. But I noticed recently that lane is now 4 times as long as a normal lane, which goes straight through. So I said, what's happening? Well, they're going to the casino. So I'm obliged to take the right-hand lane, which is now, the lights are very good. I can pass right on through, and I take a left onto 4th. And I'm noticing something very ugly on 4th Street, 4th and Broadway. And that's this cancerous outgrowth on top of the Flatiron Building. And I've known that building as being a modest piece of architecture from A.H. Lay. And if Mr. Lay were here today, he'd have a coronary. It's an abortion. And if Ms. Dolan is right, and I'm sure she is, this is a classical case of bait and switch. Let's promise something, give them something else, and hope no one notices. Council has a distinct responsibility to preserve the face of the South Side and see whether there was a clear bait and switch, and I'm sure it was, because I think Ms. Dolan is really on target with this. And I'm glad she brought it up, because I was planning to say this anyway, because I'm passing this building constantly because to avoid the 412 traffic going to the casino. And see the building then and now, it's insulting. It's insulting to anybody who appreciates what the South Side was and still should be. So it's incumbent upon you to either, not either, have it removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Intalix. I would also like to address council. Mr. Veritas.
Al Bernitas, 1004 Johnston Drive. Just a couple of comments. Most of them, frankly, are ad hoc. I came prepared to mention a couple of things, but now I have 5 or 6. And I would like to commend Mrs. Dolan on her viewpoint of what's happening to the Flatiron Building. And I'll tell you why. It's terrific to know that someone actually pays attention to what some of the buildings look like in town and what some folks say when they come into these meetings. Not just city council, but this happens all the time at the zoning hearing board. It happens to a certain extent at the planning commission. The point is, there's basically Mr. Atalas called it a bait and switch. It's so easy for someone to come in and say, oh, don't worry about this, it's only going to be 24 feet high, no one's going to see it. Oh, no one's going to see the masonry siding. No one's going to see air conditioning on top of a roof. No one's going to see a flat building. And folks come in, experts testimony, giving expert testimony that don't worry, you're not going to see it. So, Mrs. Dolan, when you mentioned that, I need to talk to the chair. When she mentioned that, it really hit a hot button with me, because a lot of smoke and mirrors happens in the zoning hearing board meetings. I don't stand up and give testimony about it because I don't live 300 feet away from everything in the city. But people really should pay attention to that. That was number 3 on my list. So let me talk about what was number 1 on my list. Coming up, you're going to end up appointing a new controller. And I think everybody's probably aware of this, but just in case some folks would like to know, if you're aware of third-class city code, Article 17 with regard to city controller, Section 1701 with regard to qualifications, again, that's Article 17, Section 1701, states the city controller shall be a competent accountant, at least 21 years of age, shall have been a resident of the city for at least 1 year, next before his election, maybe we should say their election, and shall reside in the city throughout the term of office. I think that there are 5 or 6 candidates for city controller. I think one of them has a terrific financial background. One of them has a background as an economist. I think that might qualify as having an accounting background. And I think one of them actually does have an accounting background and has a CPA. So I would seriously consider what the other candidates have, and if they don't have those qualifications, they should immediately be discounted. That was item number 1. The second thing I wanted to mention was, I always don't do a love dance when I meet people in the city. But over the last week or 2, I've had a chance to interact with a few members of staff. I interact with the members of staff quite a bit, and in the future I'll be giving complimentary comments to them too. But in particular, over the last 2 weeks, I've had an opportunity to deal with Gina Bullard in engineering, and I want to tell you, she was delightful. Took me way beyond my level of expectation. And I told her just because she was so nice, I was coming to council to give her some public accolades. And that was very helpful. Also, I had an interaction with the Commissioner Schiffer. Fortunately, he didn't cuff me, but it was a positive interaction, and he was very receptive to some suggestions I made. I was thrilled. And I also didn't have to go to jail over it, so it was terrific. The other item is rules of council. I just wanted to get a clarification. I'm down to 1:14, so I think I can get it all out. I understand the new rules of council are such that it's now called public comment as opposed to courtesy of the floor. I understand that public comment means that we cannot get an answer back from council or from city staff members. And I would just like a clarification on that.
That's correct.
You just responded. Did I catch you? All right, so that's clarified. Thank you very much. All right, talked about the aesthetics. And I would also like to talk about the new downtown West Bethlehem. Why does no one ever talk about West Bethlehem having a downtown? It's always downtown on the south side. It's always downtown on the north side. It's Bethlehem has 2 downtowns. No. Bethlehem has 3 downtowns. And the one over on the west side really has a terrific arterial roadway coming right off of 378, right up to 8th Avenue and Broad. And if zoning ought to be changed, it ought to be allowed there to have higher buildings and make 3 downtowns. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address council? Ms. Pomegranate.
My name is Mary Congrass. I live at 321 West 4th Street. I would like to say that I am very much in favor of what these two gentlemen have said. On the south side, we were the victims of this type of development, whereby our nonprofits would dump, I say the word was used, would dump the undesirables on our part of town because supposedly it was cheaper to put them there. It was not that reason that they dumped all of these undesirables on our side of town. It was simply another form of blockbusting for the benefit of Lehigh University and Bethlehem Steel. These people are very wise. You put that type of development in that area, you begin to destroy what has been and is a very stable neighborhood. Do you realize how quickly we can have a crime-ridden neighborhood in that section? You just go right out Center Street, you go on 22, you're out of it, and you've had your fun. I'm also amazed at the bigotry shown towards the students at Bethlehem Catholic. I'm a graduate of Bethlehem Catholic. I'm very proud of it because I got a wonderful education. And to make a statement from the mouth of anyone in this city to say, well, the students from Bethlehem Catholic can go over to this facility. Good Lord, what kind of nonsense is that coming from a religious person? I have to say there's something very wrong. That church still has a for sale sign on it. Does that mean that Mr. Atiyah will not buy the building until he gets your variance? Now that's not fair to the church either. There's a great many things going on in this town, most of them good. But until some people in this town grow up and realize, as Mr. Bernard said, and I've said this many times, what about West Bethlehem? Every presentation I've been here in this wonderful place, they talk about North Bethlehem, South Bethlehem. West Bethlehem is a real place, believe it or not. It is not North Bethlehem. It is not South Bethlehem. It is a well-established part of the community, and it is West Bethlehem. Am I correct on that assumption? And I've said that many times, and it like flies right over the head of the administration. Council has the ability and the desire, I hope, to realize that the people in West Bethlehem have also suffered from unnecessary demolition. There's a whole area of West Bethlehem that no longer exists. Do you know that? And one other comment, and I have to say this, and I might ruffle a few feathers. When I look at the people who are put on the various boards in this city, I have no doubt they are good people, interested people, but how many of those people are real Bethlehemites? Almost none. You can hire a lawyer, and he can be good. Now, Mr. Spadoni, behave. But you can hire a lawyer who knows the law, but doesn't know how to apply it. And we have too many people on these boards because they work for this institution, or they have this kind of a job, or this much money in the bank. We need people to be put on these, how can I say it? That the mayor should place people on these committees who are real people interested in a real city and people who care about the city of Bethlehem. And I'm not going to tell you I'm eligible because I have enough on my plate now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pomerantz. Any other public comment? Anyone else like to address the city council?
Joshua Buck, 1739 Hastings Road. I would just like to address that I am a member of the Coalition for Appropriate Transportation here in the city of Bethlehem, and am very grateful to the city for repaving West Broad Street. As a cyclist who uses the street regularly, it is very nice to no longer have to dodge potholes and cracks. But I think it is a real concern both to the community of the west side and the people who regularly use the road for modes of transportation other than driving, that when roads are repaved, markings are returned to the road surface in a timely manner. I do understand that there are conditions that have to be met, temperature-wise and financially, labor-wise, which the city cannot always meet those in a timely manner, but I think we should begin looking at repaving or repainting street markings so that all road users are safe when using all of the roads here in the city of Bethlehem, especially those which may be ideal for use because of their recent repaving. And that's all I have for right now.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address city council under public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.